You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
I don't understand how he's able to get away with the things he gets away with, breaking the law, the emoluments clause, taking bribes, blackmailing people. He's a criminal con man. And if you grew up in New York, as I did, you knew this your whole life. We watched his planes get repossessed off the runway at LaGuardia. We watched him try to sell steaks and cologne and a fake university, steal money from charities that his family can't even have a charity anymore in New York City, in the New York State, because they had stolen money from kids' cancer charities. There's no way you can look at the facts about this man and believe in him still. You have to have willful blindness.
Donald Trump once mocked a woman during a national debate, making a remark about only Rosie O'Donnell. That moment wasn't just an insult, it was a declaration of war. But Rosie stayed silent until now. She's back, and she's not laughing. On Live TV, she exposed the man behind the mask, calling Trump a fraud, a con artist, and the most dangerous liar to ever hold office. With calm precision, she dismantled his self-made image and uncovered the history he's tried to bury. Rosie didn't seek revenge, she came with evidence. And now, Trump's empire of lies is starting to crumble. What she revealed isn't petty. It's something that could lead to legal action, if Americans are paying attention. This could mark the end of Trump's reign of dirty politics.
Because they sold him as America's biggest successful businessman, and he had been bankrupt 6 times. And he had lots of charges of sexual abuse against him. And he is, known for lying and for corruption. And he had a charity that he and his family now can never do a charity again in New York because they stole money from children who had cancer.
And this is all fact.
All you need to find out these facts is a computer, people. I am not an investigative journalist. I simply lived there my whole life. And in New York, where he grew up as well, we're around the same age. I'm 63, he's 107. Is that what he is? I'm not sure.
Rosie didn't just call Trump a con artist, she laid out how he pulled off the biggest political deception of our time, from his fake wealth to his reality show fame. Trump convinced millions that he was a titan, not a ticking time bomb. Rosie made it clear, he's been bankrupt more times than he admits. Funded by his father's money, and still can't prove his worth to Forbes. He's not a builder, he's a borrower. He's not a leader, he's an illusionist. The cruel irony, America bought the act. She warned, if a man this hollow can rise this far, democracy is hanging by a thread. If we ignore this message again, there may be no country left to save.
Unreal. And for me, in 2006, when he was just a embarrassment in New York, nobody respected him in any way. Forbes never would put him on the richest people list because they couldn't verify his income because he was often broke. He's a con man, period. And if you grew up in New York like I did, you knew that. But he got on that show, and Mark Burnett, the producer, taught him that if you tell a lie long enough on TV, people will believe it, just how they do Fox News. That's not a news station, that's an entertainment station. And they were fined millions of dollars for lying to the American public.
Rosie uncovered the showbiz secret that fueled Trump's rise to power. The Apprentice wasn't just a TV show, it was a smokescreen. He wasn't running a boardroom, he was scripting a lie. The networks didn't just air it, they promoted it. And once Trump bought into his own edited reruns, there was no turning back. Rosie called it psychological warfare, turning voters into viewers, truth into ratings, and corruption into entertainment. This wasn't a coincidence, it was media manipulation at its most dangerous. And it worked. America handed him the nuclear codes. If anyone still thinks it was all a joke, they're stuck in episode 1. Rosie's warning is clear, we're all living in Trump's unscripted horror show.
It's very depressing. And it seems very strange to me that the President of the United States has so many friends who are sexual abusers. And people have just really had enough. They've had enough of a president who separates families and puts babies in cages. You know all of the catchphrases. Every day he does something worse than the day before. And he tops it and tops it and tops it. I believe that Trump is loathed in America, that people are embarrassed and ashamed of who he is, and that come election day, we're going to stand up at the polls and let him know. And unless he goes in and has the Russians kind of fix it like he did last time in 2016, we're going to see him gone. And that's what I'm waiting and hoping for, and hoping that people across the country are inspired to use their own voice in whatever way to get people to know that this country is worth fighting for.
Then came the moment that left the audience in shock. Rosie recalled when Trump held a press conference to forgive a teenage girl for kissing another girl, all while his own history of sexual misconduct accusations remained unaddressed. Rosie didn't hold back. She called it what it was, a pimp showcasing a victim. It wasn't a joke, it was a portrait of hypocrisy so twisted it made the crowd uneasy. Trump, she said, isn't just corrupt, he's dangerous in ways we haven't even begun to understand. And when a predator plays the role of a priest, the system is broken. Rosie's truth isn't just sensational, it's surgical. With every word, she dug deeper into Trump's fake morality play.
Well, he is a cruel, criminal, and mentally unstable man. And Duty to Warn was a book that came out when he was first in office. Psychiatrists across the country who don't ever really diagnose people that they don't serve personally came together and made a book, Duty to Warn, to tell the world what a narcissistic, mentally ill person he is. And I think he's the worst thing that ever happened to the United States, and his cruelty knows no bounds. And when he is upset and humiliated and embarrassed, he has no control and he goes apeshit. Can I say that?
Yeah, you just did.
Rosie didn't just talk about politics, she spoke about trauma. When Trump won in 2016, she said she didn't just feel sad, she spiraled into a depression so deep she almost lost herself. And why? Because for millions of Americans with abusive pasts, Trump wasn't just a politician. He was a trigger, a reminder of men who hurt without consequence. She called it national PTSD. Rosie made it personal, and in doing so, she made it universal. This wasn't just political grief, it was psychological warfare. Her message was clear. Trump's power isn't strength, it's a threat. If this man rises again, millions could fall back into silence, fear, and despair.
Can you explain to me, though, I cannot believe that every Republican congressman or woman, every Republican senator is stupid.
Well, they're not stupid, but they're definitely afraid of him. People in America are afraid of him. They're afraid to stand up to him, against him, because, and when I did on The View in 2006, I remember Joy Behar saying, you're not going to say that out there, because he had a press conference right before we were live, where he had a teenager, Tara O'Connor, who was Miss Teen USA. She had kissed a girl in the Village, and they took a picture and put it on all the newspapers. And he made her do a press conference where she apologized. And it looked to me like a pimp and a prostitute. And I said that on the air. And then I proceeded to list facts, not hyperbole, just facts about who he was and what he did. Bankrupt all these times, money from his father, not a self-made man, can't quantify his riches on Forbes magazine. I just said facts, and you would think that I called his mother a whore. He went insane.
What made it worse, Rosie explained, wasn't just Trump's cruelty, but the silence that enabled it. She called out Republican senators who rushed for elevators when asked about Epstein, and the Supreme Court that quietly buries evidence in the dead of night. According to her, Trump isn't acting alone, he's backed by cowards in suits who let a con man tear apart the Constitution. Rosie made it clear, it was never about stupidity. These people aren't dumb, they're spineless. They don't fear consequences, they fear Trump's tweets. And the longer they enable him, the more corruption becomes normalized. If we don't call this what it is, complicity, then we're just spectators in America's final act. And Rosie's warning is clear, the clock is already ticking.
was pretty much the foundation of what he wanted to do. And I said, I have to get out of here. And I left before the inauguration on purpose because for 20 years, he's been using me as a punchline in all of his jokes. And he's a very unbalanced individual, and it's very dangerous to be in his target range. And for 4 years when he was in last time, it was not a good time for me. And I have a little child who's 12 who has autism, and I have to be on top of my game. You know, I have to be mentally and emotionally there and present. And I didn't want to be distracted by him or have him play such a major role in my reality. So I said, where could I go? And this was the only choice for me.
Rosie didn't just face Trump's anger, she lived in it. For 20 years, he made her a public target. Every scandal, every investigation, every time things got heated, he turned to Rosie. Why? Because she spoke the truth too early, too loud, and too unapologetically. And the consequences. Death threats, media smear campaigns, and now, an actual threat to revoke her citizenship. Yes, the President of the United States publicly threatened to strip her of her citizenship. No law, no reason, just pure ego. Rosie asked, is this still America? It's a chilling question, because when a dictator starts labeling critics as enemies of the state, you're no longer in a democracy, you're in danger.
Expect nothing but the lowest bar for Donald Trump. And, you know, every single day he just grants my perception of him as correct by his actions, by his words, by his horrible Truth Social that is failing. And, you know, he is the kind of person that is a grifter, and he is an evangelical preacher to people who believe that Celebrity Apprentice was true. And Celebrity Apprentice was not true. And Mark Burnett has tapes of him calling people every racist word in the world, telling women to get down on their knees. Mark Burnett owns the cache of all of Trump's sickness, and he refuses to release it. And I think that's a sin, because what's happening now is democracy is on trial.
It's not just about Rosie's story, it's about what her story represents. How a narcissistic leader can manipulate the press, intimidate critics, and still rise to power. She exposed how Trump's wealth wasn't the result of brilliance, but of Fred Trump's millions and a long history of unpaid contractors. She listed the scams, lawsuits, lies, and cons. And yet, Rosie became the villain, not Trump. Why? Because America chose fantasy over facts. The red flags weren't hidden, they were ignored. Rosie's greatest crime was saying what the media wouldn't. And now, years later, her words feel prophetic. If we don't listen this time, we're signing up for another 4 years of chaos. Then, she shared the moment that truly broke her election night, November 8, 2016. As Trump claimed victory, Rosie felt the ground beneath her disappear. It wasn't just a political loss, it was a personal betrayal. She couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, couldn't fathom how a man with his record could be chosen to lead the free world. How did she cope? With tattoos, Bob Mueller's face over her heart. Satire as a way to survive the spiral. For Rosie, comedy isn't just entertainment, it's oxygen. But that night, the jokes weren't enough. And if that moment repeats in 2025, she warns it could trigger something even worse. This wasn't just depression, it was national trauma. And Trump's return could make it permanent.
Well, I respect their right to do that. I question why the first time in American history a president has won every swing state and is also best friends, and his largest donor was a man who owns and runs the internet. So I would hope that that would be investigated and that we would see whether or not it was an anomaly or something else that happened on election night in America when Kamala Harris was filling up stadiums with people who supported her. And Donald Trump was not able to do that. So it's curious to me. And as an American and a believer in democracy, I would hope that we would be able to look at all of the reasons why this happened.
Rosie painted a picture of Trump not just as unfit, but as unwell. She described his swollen ankles, blotchy skin, and erratic behavior as signs of physical decline. But more dangerous than his body, she warned, is his delusion, He sees himself as a superhero literally posing in fan-made cartoons. Chest puffed, cape flowing, eyes blazing with false glory. But behind the filters and spray tan is a man falling apart, a man whose lies have outpaced his memory. And in that cognitive fog, Rosie says, lies the real danger. Because a man who can't tell fact from fiction won't be able to tell peace from provocation. And if he's given power again, it won't be politics, it will be destruction.
100%, because, I had an interaction on television where I talked about him in 2006. And he went really crazy. He just could not get himself to get over it for over 20 years. And he uses me as a punching line and disparages me and insults me and calls me names like it's a kid in school and I'm being teased. But when I talked about him, he was not the president. He was a reality show host, and he was a little bit of a joke in New York, where I grew up. If you grew up in New York, you watched his planes get repossessed off the runways at LaGuardia. You watched him grift everyone with this steak business and a fake university that he got sued for. And so nobody really took him seriously in 2006 at all. And then he becomes the president of the United States. And does he stop? No, he puts the pedal to the metal.
Trump didn't lose control because Rosie lied. He lost it because she told the truth. And the truth she revealed was too raw to ignore. This man isn't just losing his political grip, he's losing his mental grip. Rosie said he's not just lying to the public, he's lying to himself. In his world of delusion, the man in the mirror is a myth he created. And when anyone forces him to face reality, he lashes out like a child cornered by consequences. Rosie called it dangerous self-deception. He's not playing president, he thinks he's a messiah. But what happens when that fantasy collides with nuclear power, real enemies, and real lives? America may not survive the next illusion.
Rosie O'Donnell is not in the best interest of our great country. I am giving serious consideration to taking away her citizenship, he wrote on Truth Social. He dug in even deeper at Andrews Air Force Base Sunday.
I don't know about Rosie. I watch Rosie. Rosie's a mess. She's a mess. But she left our country, which is a good thing, not a bad thing.
O'Donnell moved to Ireland after Trump's 2024 election. Today, she's firing back. Trump has always hated the fact that I see him for who he is, a criminal con man, sexual abusing liar, out to harm our nation to serve himself. This is why I moved to Ireland, even though she was born in the USA. O'Donnell also went on radio in Ireland addressing his threat to yank her citizenship.
I know he can't do that, but the Supreme Court has given him unbridled powers, and who knows what he can and can't do.
The Trump-O'Donnell feud goes back nearly 2 decades, ever since she mocked the future president's hair on The View.
There he is, hair looping going. Everyone deserves a second chance. And I'm gonna give her a second chance.
When Rosie announced she was leaving the U.S. and claimed Irish citizenship, it wasn't for drama, it was for survival. She said the political environment became so toxic and triggering that her mental health was crumbling, watching Trump dismantle LGBTQ protections, mock minorities, and empower hate wasn't just offensive, it was suffocating. For many like her, it felt like a nightmare you couldn't wake up from. Rosie didn't leave America. America left her. She called it emotional exile. And if that's how millions feel under Trump's rule, it's not just a red flag, it's an evacuation. Warning, because when citizens flee the country they love, something has already broken beyond repair.
At the moment is right, but the Supreme Court has given him carte blanche, so he can pretty much do what he wants, this very corrupt Supreme Court and this very corrupt Senate, because they just recently voted not to release the Epstein files in the middle of the night, like criminals, hiding. And when reporters stop them and talk, they run to the elevator there in the Senate buildings, and they don't answer for their constituents. And all of these people are as guilty as he is for all of his crimes.
Rosie made a grim joke. Maybe she should run for president with Conor McGregor as vice president. The crowd laughed. But the truth hit harder. She admitted she's too emotional to play the cold, ruthless game of politics, but maybe that's exactly what's missing: emotion, humanity, and truth. She pointed out that Trump's rise was built on cruelty. First, it was disabled people, then Muslims, then immigrants, then the LGBTQ community. Step by step, the targets grew, and most people turned a blind eye. She warned, this is how authoritarianism works. You silence the vulnerable first, then you silence everyone else, and by the time people speak up, it's already too late. Rosie didn't just escape, she sounded the final alarm.
Have you watched them on the debates? I mean, it's like it's the worst group, except for a couple. I don't mind Huntsman. Do you mind Huntsman?
You know, listen, to watching the debates, it's so scary and sad. Like, to me, I can't even believe it. The only thing that I thought happened recently to make the Republican debates even worse than they possibly could have been was the addition of the new moderator.
Oh, shall we not say his name in your company?
He's like Lord Voldemort. Let's just ignore that he exists. But I don't know. It just seems so comical.
Don't start with him.
I'm not.
You know,
I'm not afraid, Joy. Don't you remember? I'm not afraid. Look.
Rosie, you're doing it again.
Honey, only for you, right? Yeah. Only for you, Behar.
Oh, my God.
No, he is, to me, he's the perfect person to moderate the Republican debate, because what he is about and who he is pretty much representative in all of those candidates as well. It's become like the party of comedy, of jokes, of I don't even believe it's real anymore, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, what about Newt's plan to drop the child labor laws and put kids to work as janitors? I mean,
yeah.
When does he come up with this crap?
I don't know. They tried that in Australia many years ago with Aboriginal children. It didn't turn out too well. Perhaps he should read a history book. I don't know. That guy's a joke. The only thing funnier possibly is Herman Cain, which I just thought it doesn't really get any better than that, honestly.
Yeah.
From the pizza man to the sexual harasser to the I never did anything to the I'm quitting and I'm quoting Pokemon. How the hell did that happen?
I know. You know, as a comedian, I'm going to really miss him, though.
I'm going to miss him,
material.
Too. Can you imagine a presidential candidate quoting Pokemon? Somebody up there, like, imagine Bill Clinton, saying, would you, could you, in the chair? Would you, could you?
The most chilling part of Rosie's interview wasn't just what she said, but what she predicted. She warned that Trump's return wouldn't be a comeback, it would be the collapse of truth, law, and decency. He's not campaigning, he's scheming. And the playbook hasn't changed: distract, attack, deny. When courts push back, he strikes down. When facts emerge, he creates chaos. Rosie put it perfectly: he's not just a danger to democracy, he's its enemy. And if America lets him back in, it won't just be voters making a mistake, it'll be a system surrendering to a con artist who never respected it. This next election could be our last real one. What started as celebrity gossip, Rosie O'Donnell versus Donald Trump, has become a symbol of national decay. For years, he ridiculed her, mocked her, threatened her, but she outlasted him, not with insults, but with truth. She stood her ground while the media cashed in, the Senate stayed silent, and the courts played politics. Now, as Trump charges toward another campaign built on lies and rage, Rosie's voice rings louder than ever. She's not just calling him out, she's calling America to wake up, to fight back, and to remember that tyranny doesn't start with tanks. It starts with tweets. And if we let him win again, we won't get a second exile. We'll get a final one.